be uptight.
I know, you got to pull that
Cheers.
microphone back.
I feel like you're a helicopter pilot.
Welcome to everybody.
I suppose it was time. I hadn't really thought about it all that much, honestly. And one day about a year ago, maybe August, it just occurred to me. I said, God, you know, I've been writing songs for forever, for soon be 50 years of songwriting. I could have a lyric book.
Mm-hmm.
And it was that simple. It wasn't a very ambitious moment for me. It was just a simple, I could do that. And once then intentionality came into play. Well then I'm going to do that. Next thing I noticed is that I had lost 35 notebooks. Somehow 35 notebooks full of first drafts and what have you had followed me around in all the houses that I've lived in over the years.
You kept them all.
I did. Now, I wasn't really...
You have them in a box someplace?
Yeah.
Because they're all through this book. They're photographs of the original notebooks where he wrote the songs. And I think it's a part of the art, too. It strikes me that the words, the scratch outs, all of that is part of that art,
Part of the
right?
process, yeah. Well, the interesting thing about looking at first drafts, and I noticed some couplets that I didn't use that I go, why didn't I use that? You know, it's debatable about whether or not what I got rid of was not better than what I actually wound up with. Sometimes you just lose track of what's best.
Are there songwriters in the room? I suspect, yes. If you want to raise your hand, please don't be shy. So tell me about the process. Do you still write on a notebook? Write songs on a
I
notebook?
always start with hand, and eventually I get to the computer. But I try to delay that as long as I can. The analog experience, having been where I started, I trust it. But having spent 10 years writing a memoir, I also became keen on editing on a computer. Because editing analog editing, you got to write it all over again instead of just delete. And there was David Allan Coe, the songwriter. Guy Clark and I used to get a really good laugh if you were writing a song with David Allan Coe and you came up with it. If you had 7 lines or 14 lines down, if you found a new line, David Allan would tear the sheet away and start over and write everything up meticulously and add the new line. I don't have that kind of patience. The fact that if you see first drafts from me, what I've always done is if I have a good first verse, I'll put it in the corner. And then I get a second verse that's maybe right below that one. But then around the third verse or chorus, I start hiding them on the page. I may turn them upside down, turn them sideways and write them so that when I look at it, I have to. The interesting thing about that for me is it keeps me from getting, as a friend of mine once said to me, keeps me from falling in love with what I've written.
And as I read it out loud, it had a different tone and feeling, and powerful. The song's powerful, but when you read it out loud, it's powerful as well. You want to read a little bit? Song. Hearing you say it.
Good idea. Thanks.
I should have had
Let me do
it marked.
it.
My apologies.
It's close to the front.
But I would read it, but I think you'll do it.
guitar down and tell me the words and look me in the eye. He said, whenever you have the inclination to look the other way, you'll know that your line is not any good. And it was always that way. It's like the moment you wanted to flinch, it's like the language wasn't there. I can't see all your eyes, but I can go with this. May the wind be at your back and the world sit at your feet. May you waltz across Wyoming with a rose clutching your teeth. May the answers to your questions fall like raindrops right on cue. And may you set up and shop in heaven, for the devil knows you do. Ooh, here's to love, here's to life. All the fair, tender ladies and the plain dirt farmer's wife. Yeah, here's to you, here's to me. Some old mad dog mountain flyboy and the kid from Tennessee. May your nights be filled with laughter and your days with honest work. May you wake up smelling roses when you're face down in the dirt. If you had the sense to come in when the storm clouds start to grow, you wouldn't be my right hand and the best friend that I know. Ooh, here's to love. No, ooh, here's to life. Here's to love. When your heart beats like a lion's and your shoes fit like a glove. Yeah, here's to you, here's to me. Some old mad dog mountain flyboy, a kid from Tennessee. May you always stay in touch with the things that keep you young, and when you're staring at injustice, may you never bite your tongue. May the bear tracks in your future find you downwind in the glade, where the grass is green as absinthe comes in 40 different shades. Ooh, here's to love, here's to life. All the fair and tender ladies and the old fishmonger's wife. Yeah, here's to you, here's to me. Some old mad dog mountain flyboy and a kid from Tennessee. Yeah, set 'em up, drinks for free. It's a mad dog mountain flyboy and a kid from Tennessee.
I read a story about you playing for me the first time. Talk about how that happened.
You may have that mixed up. There's another song that I wrote that song.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I got mixed up.
I actually wrote this song. Guy and I had a falling out, as good friends do, and it took us some years to catch back up with each other. And the guy was really mad at me. I heard him pretty deeply, and I initiated it wrong. And when we finally crossed over back into the relationship we'd always had, I wrote that song to him as an apology. I've written a lot of apology songs. The one you're thinking of is called "Getting Over You," I think, and that's the song that I wrote for a guy in the last 6 months of his life.
Yeah, I think I read that you said he said, "How long have you been working on this?" You said 3 years. Haven't told me yet.
Well, actually, I was pretty much finished with it.
Were you?
I was looking for always visitation was around, hey, let's write something. You know, sometimes we never got around to that, but it's like, it was always like, yeah, let's write something. So I said, help me finish this, and he listened to it, and he said, oh, you're already finished with that. A little edited. And it was about 1973, and Jerry Jeff Walker was, so prevalent at the time, and so I had a house over in Hillsborough Village that was deemed the perfect place for one of those 3-day Texas parties to go on, and all of the songwriters in town who wanted to come play their song for the guy who wrote Mr. Bojangles to come around. So okay, it's my place, let's go. But I had just gotten a little puppy from this little girl down the street whose parents wouldn't let her have it, so I said, this little puppy. And so I just read The Hobbit, Tolkien's Hobbit, and there was a character in there called Bilbo, so I was calling the dog Bilbo. Bilbo, you know, and so Jerry Jeff comes in, and Guy and Jerry Jeff were curating songs, but all of these drunk Texans were coming in and wanted to fondle my puppy, and I was trying to keep him safe, and then finally Jerry Jeff locked onto it. Got him. And that was like, and I was jealous. So that dog was looking at Jerry, and I was going, that's my dog, that's not his dog. So about the morning, third morning, I don't think we hadn't slept. Maybe it was just 2 mornings, but it seemed like the third morning. Finally, I gave up and went to bed. And I left everybody, whoever was still hanging on, to finish up and do whatever they want to. So I thought maybe I'd been asleep for an hour. And I got a phone call from David Loggins. You know, David Loggins, please come to Boston. And David said, hey, Jerry Jeff stole your dog. He's at the airport. This was the old airport in Nashville. And so I had a little red panel truck, you know, one of those delivery panel trucks. I threw on some clothes and headed for the airport, slid in, and just let my panel truck run and ran. There were 12, you probably remember the 12 gates at the time. I ran down, and there was Jerry, and at the time he carried his boots in a saddlebag over his shoulder, his stage boots. And I said, Jerry, what you got in the bag? He said, okay, so he pulled Bilbo out of his, I said, give me my dog. He said, okay, well you can at least call him by his name. And I said, I do call him by his name. He said, he's Banjo. I said, God, that's a great name. So that's Banjo. That's how he became Banjo. So I moved to California to work with Indian Live. And I took Banjo with me. And I lived in Hermosa Beach where the leash law violations were serious. Stringent. So on the 47th leash law violation, the dog catchers rounding up Banjo and bringing him to my door. After 47 and I didn't pay, they sent the police.
Which in cups?
Yeah. But I was literally sitting.
For a dog?
I was literally sitting in the living room working on this kind of boogie song that I was starting to understand it was going to be kind of it was going to turn into Ain't Alone Like This, which is one of my most sturdy songs. But right at that time, the police arrived, handcuffed me, and my then wife, I said, there's some money in the drawer, but take your time getting me out. I want to work on this last verse. So I lay in jail and composed in my head the last verse, and you know, most of the chorus they ended along like this. That story's in the book.
Yeah, I was just going to say that that's a great story that he writes in the book, one of the many terrific stories. And just listening to the names, Mickey Newberry, Dave Loggins, and David Allan Coe, and this crowd that you hung with in your young career.
It's called, and I had an experience where I had amnesia for 4 hours. I didn't know where I was in the world.
What do you call it?
It's called transient global amnesia. But
I read that.
Yeah, but where is it in this book? May not be able to find it in the time that we had. All right, I'm going to read one. My father-in-law and mother-in-law live in Dallas, and when I would go visit them, they're walking into the kitchen. There was a little small bookshelf with a photograph of my father-in-law behind the wheel of a 1956 Plymouth Fury. Eggshell white. It's here. Now my memory, what I had, how I had him, is he's kind of got the Gene Vincent spit curl on his forehead. He's got on a regular shirt, but in my imagination, And every time I looked at it, he had on a white t-shirt with a pack of Luckies rolled up in his sleeve, with his hands, you know, draped over the steering wheel. And I thought, there has to be a song in this. Somewhere there's a song in this. And I would walk past it, and for several years. And then one day I walked back into the den, and there was this painting that my wife had done for Mother with like a 7-inch high beehive, spray net hairdo. And that's when I said, now I know. Now I know what the song is. What went on in the back seat of that 56 So it came out, and I recorded it with Billy Gibbons, the ZZ Top fan, and we had a blast recording and making it like a Texas boogie song. But it is a portrait of my mother-in-law and father-in-law and my mother-in-law. And it goes, spit curl down his forehead, talking about, yes, it's understood. It's not just some lame six-bang grease stain sitting underneath this hood. Tending down a camel on a Zippo with a grin, maybe wider than a country mile. Of course it can't cool him. Taking us to school, man. Burning up the road in style. 56 Fury, built for comfort, built for speed. 56 Fury, along about everything you need. 56 Fury. Hair stacked up and twisted like some beehive made in France. 7 double shots of spray net down for nothing left to chance. Here's what's real, cried sweet Lucille. Here's what's real, cried sweet Lucille. There ain't no other boy I know who can even dare to hold a candle to that loving hot rod Romeo. 56 Fury, high performance built for fun. 56 Fury, Lord have mercy, watch her look at her run. 56 Fury. Two-door hard-top coupe, so sleek and sexy, make a grown man moan. Jet white streak of lightning, destination long since gone. Back off V8 Ford, back off Chevrolet, Pontiac, Cadillac, ain't even fit for hauling hay. 56 Fury, bound for glory, seconds flat. 56 Fury, somebody tell me what was that? 56 Fury, finest car on the road.